Good evening and welcome to the June Astro Talk coming to you. Well, I'm coming to you live from the Leon Mount Dark Sky site. Sorry for the technical issues. We've been having some troubles with Facebook lately. That's why we've got a late start tonight. Our speaker, Andrew Hayes, is coming from the comfort of his home, as is Bill Stent, the telescope gent, later on this evening. This month, we're going to be hearing from Andrew Hayes on his journey to America whilst chasing the eclipse. So we're going to be following Andrew's talk will be graced with Bill Stent, the telescope gent, and Bill will share with us what we can expect to see in the night sky in the coming months. But before we begin, I would like to say, in the spirit of reconciliation, the Astronomical Society of Victoria acknowledges traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Now, for tonight's talk, we go from navigating snowstorms to indulging in maple syrup. Andrew's adventure is filled with diverse experiences. Hear about the impressive sight of F-35 jet fighters. I'm looking forward to that. And the awe-inspiring spectacle of the solar eclipse. This presentation promises a fascinating blend of science, travel, and personal anecdotes, offering a unique perspective on the wonders of the northeast of the USA. And don't miss the opportunity to learn about the exciting events and discoveries from Andrew's trip and connect with fellow astronomy enthusiasts. Andrew grew up in dark skies and from a young age always had an interest in the night sky. After a career with Apple for 20 years, he finally learnt that Apple's just not the best. That's why he left. He moved to RMIT University and became heavily involved with supporting students and staff with photography, AV, and other equipment. Andrew had always wanted to expand on his astronomy and astrophotography skills, but found it hard to find the time until that is COVID came along. Well, there's one good thing to come from COVID. Andrew got to do astronomy. As one of the luckier ones, he was fortunate enough to still be able to work from home, which helped give the time needed to expand on his astronomy and astrophotography skills. And he joined the ASV in late 2020 and has enjoyed not only learning new skills and making new colleagues in the ASV, but also being able to assist others in their astronomy journeys and being part of the wider ASV community, including him recently taking on the computing section director role in late 2023. Bring Andrew in. Andrew, welcome.
Good evening. How is everyone?
I think we're all good. We're all good.
Yes.
If anyone has any questions or comments for Andrew, pop them in the chat. At the end of his talk, we will put them on the screen and share them with Andrew and get him to answer them. But Andrew, the stream is yours. Take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So in April this year, I was very, very fortunate to be able to travel to the USA, not only to see the eclipse, but catch up with friends that we've had for a long time that live in Burlington, Vermont. So we were very fortunate to get to go. So let's move along. So yeah, we flew into Los Angeles, which is down here, as you can see, and then up to Newark, and then drove from Newark to Burlington, Vermont, which is a Lake Champlain there, and basically up the middle of the lake. This side is Vermont, that side is New York State. Unfortunately, however, the day we arrived turned out to be the worst snowstorm they had for the entire season. So we were faced with... Oh, sorry, forgive me, I've skipped a slide. So quick few facts about Vermont, USA. VT is their postal code. Vermont state is in the New England region, or up the northeastern United States. It borders Massachusetts to the south, New Hampshire to the east, New York to the west, and Canadian province of Quebec to the north. To give you an idea how far north, Montreal, which is in Quebec, was just a fraction over an hour away from Burlington, which is where we were staying in Vermont. Vermont, vert is French for green and Mont is French for mountain. So the nickname for Vermont is the Green Mountain State, which makes complete sense. And it was French territory before being ceded to the English, and then was the 14th state to be included in what is now the United States of America. Burlington is the largest city in Vermont with a population of about 45,000 residents. It's the second least populous state in the USA with 643,500 people. It's the only state which its capital, Montpelier, is least populous other than Burlington. So yeah, it's one of the few, well, it is the least populous capital city of any capital city in any state in the USA that has a bigger city outside. Any ice cream fans? Because it's the home of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. We've been to the factory and yes, if you didn't have diabetes before you went in, you came out with diabetes. So yeah, huge factory. On top of that, most of the land is forest, or 78%, and it's a large producer of maple syrup in the USA, and which is actually turning out nearly 2 million gallons of maple syrup a year. So if you've got a sweet tooth, great place to be. On top of that, Vermont leads the nation of the USA in breweries per capita with 58 breweries. And they're all small breweries, and they've got a lot of bespoke beers and all that sort of thing, including one that we stayed near that named all their beers after astronomical. So that was a fortunate event for us to be so close to a brewery like that. So yeah, but brewing is very popular in Vermont. And lastly, a weird fact, you can actually be, so in Vermont, there's this weird rule that if you walk outside naked, that's not against the law. But if you walk outside clothed and undressed in public, that's against the law. So it's a really weird law. I'm pretty sure they don't enforce it very often, or need to enforce it very often. But yeah, it was just a little weird fact that we picked up while we were over there. As I was saying, the day we turned up, the weather wasn't exactly all that good. So apparently at 5:30 a.m. in the morning on they had no snow. By 7:30 a.m. they had 4 inches of snow, and this was the image that our friends sent us. So yeah, pretty heavy snow. And first time, well, I've driven on the wrong side of the road before in Europe and the United States, but never in a snowstorm. So it was a bit nerve-wracking. So the speed limit here is 60 and I'm doing about 50 and probably even slower. And you can even tell how quiet it is in the car that we're sort of like, oh, don't make a mistake. Fortunately, however, oh, and this, when we got to the hotel, so the problem with the car parking was we stayed in Airbnb and every apartment had a number, and we were in apartment 303. And out in the car park, every apartment's number was painted on your car park. So there was another lady from Florida and another lady from Arizona and me out there trying to shovel snow to try and find our car park number in the snow. So yeah, a bit tricky, but we eventually found all our car parks and yeah, managed to park. But yeah, at this stage I'm thinking, oh, maybe we've come to the wrong place. But the weather did improve. So this is a view from where we were lucky enough to be able to see the solar eclipse. It's Lake Champlain in Burlington. And as I pointed out before, the border between New York State and Vermont goes right up the middle. And you can see a bit of cloud stream and all that sort of thing up there. But as far as things goes, it turned out to be a really nice day. Temperature-wise, it was about 10 degrees C. So still not warm, but reasonably clear compared to other parts of the United States that the eclipse was going to pass over in totality. There's another wider view from the middle of the lake. Really is a very picturesque and beautiful state. The people are quite friendly. things like the freeways, there's no advertising signs on the freeways. Even one of the local towns has, over winter, they put out a chair in the middle of the lake, and everyone can put down $1 bet as to when the ice melts and the chair falls into the water. Half the proceeds go to charity, half the proceeds go to the winner for picking that. So yeah, it's not a very big state, and the community is very tightly knit, but all very friendly. And as soon as they hear your accent, they're even friendlier. So yeah, very nice place to visit. On to the eclipse. So this is where my first experience in solar photography, to rephrase what Mark often says is astrophotography. We did purchase, before we went over, the old solar glasses so that you could look at the sun without damaging your eyes. And I also purchased a small solar filter that you could actually manually hold over your camera. And that's the sort of example of the pictures we got from it. The interesting thing with that was it was actually really hard to hold the filter up to your phone. And out of several hundred images, I probably only got about 20 or so that were actually any good, because you've got to really hold the solar filter closely to your camera lens on your phone to be able to get a good image without light escaping in from the other side. The only thing that I had in mind while I was doing this was thought, I should have bought a bloody Sea Star before I went over, and it probably would have been better images than that. But just the same, the image on the left there is just as the moon was starting to pass over the sun, and on the right about halfway through, and just moments for totality. So the moon had just about almost covered the sun here, and what was really interesting here, and the pictures I've taken can't convey what it actually felt like, but there was a really strange blue light in the sky, like someone had turned on a very strong blue LED light, and you can even see in the background there behind the houses, etc., where it's getting dark. And it was really, so it was already about 10 degrees C when we went there. By that, this is about -5. So as the sun was gradually being covered by the moon, the temperature really started to drop. The birds, the animals, etc., everything sort of started to slow down, become quieter and quieter. And yeah, this eerie sort of colour was quite interesting to see. Yeah, I've become a solar chaser, I think, for life now, because yeah, it was quite an interesting experience, and one we were very fortunate to experience. So we weren't the only ones there. Our friends in the United States in Burlington managed to get us into a place called the St. John's Club. It holds a maximum of 150 people. And about 12 months ago, they went and said, oh, we're going to get some friends from Australia coming in. And they said, yeah, bring them in. So we were lucky to be in a small position. But to the right of us, there was a business that has a open plan office on Lake Champlain, and a car park, etc. And they were charging people $75 for a car park, and you could go put your chair in the lake for the day, and people couldn't get in. So we were very fortunate to be in a very good spot. Yeah, there were a lot of opportunist marketers, I would put it, that were charging for space to get onto the lake for the day. So yes, we were very, very lucky. So as I say, my phone doesn't do justice to it, but yeah, that last few moments as it becomes completely covered, there was quite a feeling of people around you that were, yeah, getting quite excited. There was even a few people that got so excited they stripped off and jumped into the lake. Remembering it's -5 degrees now, about -10. So Yeah, they were pretty game, but yeah, they got quite excited. The thing I want to say here is I get really excited about this and probably waffle too much. But down in this bottom left-hand corner here, and in fact, in general, with the whole thing to the naked eye, I was absolutely astonished. There was a huge prominence down here. You got a beautiful blue line around the moon and a little bit lighter around the outside. You could see prominences, you could see the corona, you could see everything, and just with the naked eye. And yeah, to this stage, I still get quite excited and emotional about it. Some people might say spiritual. I was excited, I was happy, and it was just actually quite an experience to see. So in this next clip, you can probably hear me, yeah, waffling on a little bit. But yeah, I really was truly excited, and yeah, looking forward to 2028 when it comes to us. And to give you an idea, as I said before in my previous slides, the normal population of Burlington is about 45,000. They seem to think on the day of the quotes were about 140,000 people in Vermont during the day. Later on in our trip, we met people from Montpelier, which is the state capital, which is about half an hour away from Burlington, and they said it took them 3 hours to get home. That's the interstates, etc., was so blocked. Because Burlington was in the path of totality, a lot of people from Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and all those states all came and centred on Burlington. So the interstates were absolutely shockers. Fortunately, where we were at the St. John's Club on the lake, our friends lived only about 10 minutes away, so it didn't take us long to get home. But yeah, that gives you an idea of how many people were around the lake on the day. Okay. So that's a quick video of totality, and it's extremely beautiful. And again, the photos don't do justice to it, but 360-degree around the horizon is a sunset or a sunrise, but around the whole horizon. So you well and truly know you're in a shadow of something. But again, just quite astounding at the beauty of it all. Really was outstanding. Sorry, I get a bit emotional about that because, yeah, it really was a fantastic experience. And this is post the full eclipse, but we did a little bit of a nerdy photo. So that's our friends on the left that were already our friends, and our friends from Montreal that we've now made on the right, and Lisa and I in the middle. So it was a fantastic day. It really was. And then, of course, there was NEAF, which is the North East Astronomy Forum in Suffern, New York State. Interesting sculpture in the lance. So this is Rockland College. So it's equivalent to a tertiary college here in Australia, or a TAFE, I suppose you could call it. So it was an interesting sculpture. In the middle there, you can see the forum, which is several basketball fields inside a huge gymnasium. And when you first walk in, you come in the upper level. And for anyone that's watched a lot of astronomy or astrophotography videos and know Trevor from Astro Backyard, that's him on the right-hand side there. I tried to run down and get an autograph from him, but he was gone before I could get there in front of the ZWO stand. But yeah, that's Trevor from Astro Backyard. Wandering around, you could see the sea stars, which were heavily on display at the ZWO stand. and was fortunate enough to come across this company called Starpoint Australis. Now, I spent a good bit of time there talking to the owner of the company, who was originally from Horsham, and his father worked in Bendigo, and being a Bendigo boy and a Victorian, we spent a lot of time chatting. So these guys make astronomy tents, and what you can see here is the larger one. There is a smaller one, which starts at about $600 Australian. But yeah, they make these little tents where there's enough room for your scope and yourself to sleep. And if the weather turns bad, you can see where the Australian flag is there at the back. You can quickly get up and transfer it over and have a good dry night. The equipment is all very well made. It's high tensile steel and anti-rust, etc. So yeah, I was really fortunate to come along to meet those guys. And I'm thinking I might be ordering one of the smaller ones for my little scope. But yeah, I was excited to see an Aussie company and a startup there at the event and getting a lot of attention. Then I came across the Takahashi stand, and yeah, as someone has mentioned to me before, and they didn't provide, but they should have provided boxes of tissues all around the stand, so that when we're standing there drilling at what we can't afford, we could wipe the drill off our chin. But yeah, they're some truly beautiful scopes. Just yeah, something in the future wish list. ZWO did a good presentation on the Sea Star and their new 2600 camera, which has the ASI Air, the guide cam, and the main camera all built into one. And that was what they were really pushing there. I had hoped they would be saying, "Oh, there's a new version of the Sea Star to come out," because I hadn't bought one at that stage. But yeah, there was no new announcements on the Sea Star. So unfortunately, yeah, nothing news there. So I ordered a Sea Star when we come back home. So apparently NEAF is one of the biggest, or the biggest expo of its kind in the world. So there were a lot of people there from Canada, from southern United States, and of course from the northeastern United States. So there was lots of great companies, lots of great people I got to meet and chat with. It was a really good expo to go to. Ioptron had their new gear there. Skywatcher had new gear there. Celestron had a big 14-inch RASA there, which I didn't even bother looking at the price because it's probably worth the same if it was my house. But yeah, this massive 14-inch RASA. So yeah, it was pretty exciting to see. It's on my wish list, which I think at the end of the day is probably an ASCAR, but a new refractor at 130. But it's already a flat field, so you don't need reducers or flatteners, etc. for it. But that's on my wish list. That's what I'm saving up for next. So that's why I took a couple of pictures of that one. Some quick other adventures. So yeah, this was a funny one. Apparently in Vermont, it's quite a thing to have some snow drizzled in maple syrup, a donut, and a pickle. Apparently that's a bit of a delicacy. I must admit, I ate the pickle, tried a couple of spoons of the snow, and left the rest behind. And then felt even bad when someone else mentioned to me, "Are you sure that's maple syrup on the snow?" So yeah, that was an interesting experience. They even had a chili. Black bean chili with maple syrup mixed into it. So yeah, a bit different from my taste. Each to their own, but yeah, that was an interesting day. So the footage is unfortunately a bit ordinary because I took that on one of the days it was still snowing through a window. But every morning at 9 a.m. At the airport behind us, the Vermont National Guard has F-35 fighters. So every morning at 9 a.m. they did their exercise, and yeah, you couldn't sleep in. Amazing looking aircraft, and there was a few other times I tried to get a photo, but as soon as I heard them coming, they were gone. By the time you get your phone out of your camera, they move that fast that they were gone. So yeah, that was interesting. Then of course I know there's a lot of birders, etc., in the ASV. So we also got to spend a day at the VINS, or the Vermont Institution of Natural Science. And on the left-hand side, you can see an American falcon. In the middle, these tiny little guys are called screecher owls. And they're really, quite small and cute, as you can tell. And then on the right-hand side, we had the great great-eared owls, which were huge. And it was such a privilege to get up so close to them and to be able to see them. And their handlers, all the birds in VINS and the handlers are all birds that can't be returned to the wild because they've been injured, handed in, etc. So if they were returned to the wild, they wouldn't be able to survive. So this organisation helps look after them. Just beautiful animals. For Harry Potter fans, the snow owl. Interesting fact, the bird on the left is a female because he's got all the black spots. Males normally don't have any other markings other than white. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, Hedwig was a snow owl, and hence, the difference between the two. Then after that, we spent a little bit of a time chasing a movie location. And I'm not going to say the name of it because I'm in fear of saying it for 3 times, especially there's a new version of the film coming out later this September. But for those movie buffs, you probably know what it is, and it's got a slight astronomical connection. But yeah, this is the actual location. And even in the local library, you can go and borrow the book from the movie if you wanted to. If you don't know the movie yet, there's another hint. Hopefully someone knows the movie. Then we were lucky enough to go to the Fairbanks Museum. So the Fairbanks Museum was Mr. Fairbanks. He was quite a wealthy gentleman who made a lot of scales, i.e. weight scales, and that sort of thing for industry and for public, etc. And he donated quite a large sum in the early 1900s, about $1 million, which today would be worth probably a hell of a lot more, to establish this natural history museum in St. Johnsburg, which is up in the northeast of Vermont. And a bit of sense of humour there. The big lions at the front had their solar glasses on, and a beautiful early century style building. Inside that building, there's also a planetarium. And after the presentation, there was a person in the audience that went up to the presenter of the show, which was the night sky. today, which is what Bill's probably going to, well, similar to what Bill's going to do after me. But they were talking about pointers for the Northern Pole. So I had my ASB hoodie on, which has our logo, of course, with the Southern Cross and the pointers. So I went up and started a conversation and said, well, this is how you use the pointers in the Southern Cross to see the southernmost point. And the presenter became very excited because he is mad keen on coming to Australia to see the Skylab museum, which is in Western Australia. So yeah, he was quite excited about that. And between that and us leaving the museum, he kept coming and talking to us, and we talked about some of the. So Fairbanks donated a lot of submissions to the museum, such as animals, stuffed animals, obviously, artifacts from around the world, etc. So there's a complete Australian section where there's koalas and wombats and possums, etc. So we're having this great conversation because they had little information plates underneath each animal, and it's like, yeah, this one's endangered, this one isn't endangered, and I'm sort of going, well, that's actually endangered, that one's not so endangered. Things have changed, but yeah, it was a beautiful museum, very friendly people, and they were up for a chat when we were there. So we were very well received everywhere in Vermont. So yeah, great people. The best thing that I found at the Fairbanks Museum, this was just outside the planetarium, and this is one of Fairbanks' scales. So as you can see, there's 4 scales around, starting at the Earth. Next one in is Venus, next one in is Mars, and next one is the Moon. So this made me feel very good because on the outside you can see I'm just under 180 pounds, but on the Moon I'm about 29 pounds. So that made me feel a lot better about myself as if I was on the Moon, that is. But yeah, so very interesting scale. But then after that, it was time to come home. So after a fantastic trip, we acquainted with friends. We got to see some amazing things. We got to stay in a beautiful place. The people are very friendly. Highly recommend if you can ever go to the northeast of the United States to do so. Very worth the trip.
Thank you, Andrew.
That's okay.
I was curious. I had a curious question, but I'll get to one of the other questions first. Sia, who does a lot of solar work, who was at the boot camp on the weekend, asked what your advice for capturing the Sydney eclipse in 2028 will be.
I wouldn't go to Sydney. Would be my first thing, because there's going to be lots of people there. The fortunate thing is it goes from right up in the Kimberley, right down across the Northern Territory, down in north west New South Wales, down over Dubbo, down over Sydney. So we're really in a very fortunate position that it's a really long path that we can choose. And it's a very long one in a lot of those places as well. We're talking 4 to 5 minutes for some of them. Vermont was only 3.5 minutes. Places like Texas had a bit longer, but unfortunately, a lot of people in Texas got clouded out. So we've also got to worry about the weather as well. But if you cannot go to Sydney, I would recommend it. I've already started looking at places in Dubbo. Maybe even further north. I've heard people going to the Devil's Marbles, which would be a great location as well. But yeah, if you can avoid Sydney, because there's going to be people there. I've actually got family in Sydney, so if I wanted to go to Sydney, I could probably be okay. But I would imagine if you don't have friends and people you can stay with, Sydney is going to be very expensive and very crowded. And that's my experience from Burlington, where the population is normally 45,000 and it blew out to 150,000 on the day. So, yeah, that would be my advice, if that helps.
That's sage advice. Hopefully everyone can hear me now as well. I'm not sure what happened there, but my audio gremlins were playing up as well. So My question was, you took a phone. Was there a reason you didn't take a camera with you to capture the eclipse?
Yes. I've had a few trips where I've taken 5Ds and Canon 6Ds and all that sort of thing away with different lenses, whatever, and it actually does get very heavy after a while. But on this trip, I've never taken solar photos before, so I sort of thought, okay, let's just take the phone, just for convenience and weight, etc. Because there's a few other things that are compulsory that we have to carry for medical reasons. So this trip and the trip before, which was pre-COVID, we've only decided to take the phones. If I had a C-Star, I would have taken it, but yeah, I hadn't ordered it until we came back because I wanted to go to NEAF and see if they said, oh, well, there's this great new model coming out, blah, 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 but it wasn't to be. But yeah, at 2.5 kilos would be great to take, but yeah, it wasn't to be. But yeah, just weight, carriage, etc., onboard luggage, etc., weights, so forth. Yeah, it was decided just to take the phone. Now, I do have an iPhone 14, which does take some nice pictures, but for astro and solar, not the best, but made the most of it.
I would recommend a Samsung if you're going to use a phone, and that's actually quite serious.
Yes.
So I would always recommend a Samsung from a
absolutely.
If you go down that path. See her again. Is asking, what about equipment wise? I bet you will use your C-Star. I would agree. I would, if I was going to go to capture the eclipse, the one in Australia, I would be taking a C-Star and my phone. And that's the other thing, Andrew. I noticed you saying your photos were all handheld. Was there a reason you didn't get a tripod while you're over there to help hold the phone, or?
I did take my little portable tripod with me, but we were on a deck, and every time someone moved,
wobble, wobble.
So I gave up in the end because my hands were slightly better than the wobble from the deck. But I did take my little portable travel tripod, but yeah, it just didn't work out, unfortunately, because we were on the deck. But yes, if as I say, if I had my C-Star, it would have been a lot better. Definitely would recommend it. At 2.5 kilos with the little stand, even if it was on the deck, I would have put up with the wobbles because the picture would have been far better than what the phone was. So,
and for the price point as well, what, 900 Australian dollars for a C-Star?
Well, yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's really good value, and it's funny. I'm financial times are a little bit harder than they were a couple of years ago, but I hadn't even bothered mentioning the C-Star, etc. But there were a couple of people around other sites that had the C-Star there, and Lisa said, my wife, Lisa said, what's that? And I explained it to her, and she said, well, why don't we have one? And it's like, oh, okay.
Well, now you do.
And now we do. And even within 5 minutes it arriving here, I had it out on the table out the backyard, and I took a shot of the sun and some sunspots. And yeah, it's so easy. Gives you pretty good quality for the price point. If you've never used a telescope before, it's going to keep you in the hobby. It is a fantastic device.
Absolutely. So I think that answers your question, sir. He's going to use his C-Star.
Yes.
Right. Well, Andrew, thank you very much for your presentation tonight and for sharing.
Before you throw, being an old Apple guy, there's always one more thing. So before you throw to Bill, I just wanted to share a little anecdote between Bill and I. A couple of years ago, when I bought my first equatorial mount, here he comes. So I've got an 8-inch SCT Celestron Nexstar telescope that I've had for years, and bought my AVX mount, and everything was going really well. And then one night I went to set it up, and I've got it in my hands, and there's about a foot drop off my back deck to get out into the backyard. And as I stepped down, the cat was under my foot. So I've rolled my ankle, I've gone over, smashed the telescope. And I thought, oh no. So anyway, contacted my insurance company and said, oh yeah, we'll replace that accident at home. And then a little while later, I went through Bill's old employer, which was Optic Central, and we're out there talking about problems with my AVX mount, etc. And I look at this 8-inch SCT in the corner of the showroom, and he goes, "I'll look through the eyepiece," and I look through the eyepiece, it's all smashed. And he turns around and he goes, "Oh yeah, the guy tripped over it," and before he could finish his sentence, tripped over his cat. Yeah, that was me. So yeah, it was just a little funny little moment that I always remember Bill with. So yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much for your talk. And it is now time for Bill Stent, the telescope gent. You have to share your screen now, Bill.
I know. Hi. Everyone just likes to see me.
They do. I'm handing it over to you. You have full control.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. Select that. Oh, hang on a second. Where is it?
Do you need some help?
Oh, I might do. Let's have a look.
I think we've got it now.
Is that it?
You're sharing there. Yeah, we go.
That's it. All right.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So this is the What's in the Sky tour talk for late June, early July 2024. So something I do every month now. Okay, tonight, where I'm broadcasting from is not quite the same as what I usually do. It's in the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation. I'm going to talk about, as usual, the general conditions at this time of year. I'll talk a little bit about the solstice, and then I'll get into the What's in the Sky. Where's the moon, the planets, and getting orientated with the constellations and the bright stars. There's no planets in the evening at the moment. And then I'll go through a suggested list of targets for tonight. And then I'll do a little bit about the 5 a.m. early rises, and then I'll get back to what to look out for in the month. So the general conditions at this time of year, sunset is about 5:07. It's dark around about 6. Now next month it's 5:18, but 5:07 is about the earliest the sun sets in Melbourne. So that's right today. Sunrise is just after 7:30. It's dark until about 7:45. Now next month it's going to move all of 1 minute until it's going to we'll have sunrise at 7:34. Next Friday, that's the 21st, is the winter solstice. So it's a week and a half off yet still. For young astronomers, what's a solstice? I'll get to that in a second. And also, Milky Way season is here. So get out that DSLR now. Just a quick anecdote from myself, from my own work. I don't work for Optic Central anymore. I work for Sidereal Trading. We've sold out 3 times in the last month for wedges that go underneath camera trackers. So clearly it's Milky Way season because everyone needs that camera tracker to be nicely polar aligned. And Mark, get out your phone. Okay, solstice obviously means the stop to sun. There's a nice little guys sort of sitting out there a fair way away from Earth. I think this might be geostationary orbit or something like that. But they've taken a couple of photographs of the sun at various the Earth at various times. We're looking at the top right. That's, if I can see, you can see that. That's where we are at the moment on the June the 21st. These were taken in 2004, so they're a bit old. Now the sun is directly above the Tropic of Cancer, which is the northern hemisphere one. So look, here's the Earth's axis. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but there's a little green line that goes there up there, and that's the Earth's axis that rotates around. The equator is obviously the right angles to that. The terminator is the area between light and dark, and it's on that particular angle on the 21st. That means that the sun angle is obviously coming in at right angles from there. And the Tropic of Cancer is the line that goes parallel to the equator that starts at the point where, which is directly above the Tropic of Cancer there. So that's basically the solstice in geometry. What happens is the sun stops moving north and it starts coming back towards the south again. So it's as far away as it gets from Australia. In terms of constellations, the sun is RA 6 hours and its deck is just a fraction over 23 minutes, and it's up, and as you can see, this is where it goes, and it's up around there. So it's between Gemini and Taurus, just above Orion. You can even check that out by looking at Stellarium. The longest night being in inverted commas because there's the difference between sunrise and sunset, is in the southern hemisphere is tonight and on the 21st, and it's 14 hours and 27 minutes. Obviously, a lot of that is twilight, so 14 hours and 27 minutes in Melbourne, that is. Also, the sunset is as far north as it gets, and I don't know if you can see my mouse at all, but it comes here in here. This is the Wurdi Solar Observatory, and if you're standing in the observation stone, you can look over the far stones on the right hand side, and that's the winter solstice. That's told the original Australians when the sun was going to stop and go back the other way. Wurdi, by the way, is around about 10,000 years old, which makes it by far the oldest solar observatory in the world, and it's near Lara in Victoria. This also means that it's the start of the winter season. Australia goes a little bit early, but like 3 weeks early, but geologically or geographically or something speaking, the start of the winter season is this winter solstice. Okay, moving to the moon. By the way, there's the moon there. Okay, the first quarter is on Friday. That's the 14th of June, just a couple of days away. It rises at noon, sets at midnight, which means it's an afternoon object. And after that, after the Friday, it rises in the early afternoons and it sets early mornings because it moves slower or later every night. It's still in the north and crosses the equator on the 15th, which means that on Friday it's going to be fairly low, although 15th it's actually very close to the equator. Lunar X this month is visible. It's going to be low in the east on the 14th. That's the same day as the first quarter, at 13:49 Australian Eastern Standard Time, and it's going to look like this. So this is the view from, well, this is a simulated view through Stellarium of basically the view out of my new office window. I can see pretty much to the equator, and the moon's going to be about 13 degrees above the equator, fractionally to the left of east. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a reasonable view of the Lunar X. My new office window, by the way, looks out over Merri Creek, and I can see kangaroos on Merri Creek. And this morning there were 22 of them there. Apogee, the mini moon, is on the 15th, so it's soon after the first quarter. I'm not sure if anyone really cares, except the people who say this is a super moon, etc. The full moon is a week later on Saturday the 22nd. It rises at sunset and rises and sets sunrise, so it's opposite the sun, and then obviously it goes later. By this time, it's well into the south, so it's going to be very high in the sky. So I'm not particularly fussed about that because the full moon is always destroys astronomy. But on Friday, it's going to be about 28 degrees south of the equator. And the supermoon is on the 22nd, about a week after that. 27th, sorry. Last quarter is on Friday the 29th, where it rises at midnight and sets at noon. And obviously then later. It's a morning object, and it crosses back around about then to the northern hemisphere. And nearly in time for the next month's meeting, the new moon is on the 6th of July. Its sun rises and sets with the sun. You're not going to be able to see it. Obviously, it's a thin crescent. It's going to be hard to see, but it'll just start peeking out on sort of the 8th or 9th or something like that. Okay, so the planets over the next month. Mercury is behind the sun. Don't bother. It's out of the evening twilight by the next meeting, so you'll be able to see it in about a month or something like that. Mercury moves very, very quickly, so it plays peekaboo a lot. Venus is also close to the sun. It's an evening object, but it's still in a twilight. It'll come out. Mars is moving extraordinarily slowly. I know I've said this over the last few months, but it's moving very slowly. And just to give you an idea, tonight it rises at 3:29, and by next month it's going to move all of 10 minutes by 3:19. So it's really just sitting very stationary. Jupiter is now out of the morning twilight. It rises before dawn, and you can get quite a reasonable view of it just before the dawn breaks. Saturn is a really easy morning object now. It's very high. It rises at midnight. So in the morning, it's still very, very high. Uranus is ahead of Jupiter, rises about 4 a.m. And so it's in quite a viewable position if you have the equipment to view Uranus. Neptune is similar in availability to Neptune. It's a morning object. It rises after midnight, and it's following Saturn, so it's quite high. Pluto is still the best placed planet. It actually rises before midnight. It's so it's up there for most of the night. So, getting orientated. Here's the sky at tonight, facing south. It's actually not the sky tonight. The sky tonight is a bit cloudy. Southern Cross, one of our three marker constellations. It's just past the meridian. But it's smack bang in the middle there. Scorpius is also dominating the sky. Orion has set. It's gone. It's very close to the sun. So for orientation stars, it's a little bit random today. Arcturus is on the northern meridian. It's sort of high and in the north. Now Spica, I was trying to figure out an easy way of finding Spica. You can find a sort of a banana-shaped arrow that goes from Southern Cross through the zenith to Spica. That's about as close as I could, easy as I could get it. Achernar is extraordinarily low on the southern horizon. You won't see that if there is any blades of grass in the way. That's just way, way too low. Canopus is lowish in the southwest. So that's relatively easy to find as long as there's no buildings in the way. Antares is in Scorpius, and so that's probably the most obvious thing in the sky. It's high in the east. Last, the Milky Way. It's nearing the zenith. We are in Milky Way season, so get out your cameras. Okay, so my targets for this evening. Now, again, this is the 9 p.m. facing south. I'm going to concentrate on the Scorpius area. I'm going to select Scorpius Plus. It's a bit bigger than Scorpius area. It's entirely on the east of the meridian. The whole thing is rising. The equator runs down one side, and the galactic core runs through the other side. So it makes a sort of a V if you know where the equator is. So let's look at it. There's the equator, the blue line. Obviously, the galactic core looks just like the galactic core. Because there's the galactic core is there, there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, I've just added the major constellations here. Obviously, this is in the mouse. There we go. Obviously, you can see Scorpio there, or Scorpius there. So I keep on saying Scorpio. I must be a frustrated astrologer. Here's Corona Australis, that string of pearls there, and this is part of Sagittarius. It's the famous asterism in the teapot. So these are the things you might want to look out for in this particular area, and they also help you guide you around there. Deep sky objects. There are heaps, absolutely piles of deep sky objects in this area. So I will go through them, well, some of them anyway, in a minute. But let's just get rid of that. Okay. So for visual astronomers, this is where I put my ASV demonstrator hat on. For visual astronomers, we've got Ptolemy's cluster. Now Ptolemy's M7. It's the southernmost Messier object. So it's you can tell by that photograph, it's right in front of the galactic core. So it's got a big, heavy background there. It's also a very large cluster. it's about, from memory, it's about 1.7 degrees in size. I haven't got that written down here. Oh, so 1.3, sorry. So it's very, very large. You're going to need to have a fairly wide angle view on your telescope to actually get it all in. The butterfly cluster I don't have a photograph of, which is a pity because it's very, very pretty. And then you can see the little wings and the butterfly. M6, it's smaller than Ptolemy. So you'll need a little bit more magnification on your telescope, but it's well worth it because it's very pretty. Moving back along the spine of the Scorpio, there's the false comet cluster, NGC 6231. Now, this is the first time I saw this. Was only about a month ago. Colin was in the dome and we found this one. It's quite easy to find as long as you know where to find it. You can find it in the finder scope of your telescope. So it's just very close to, I think it's Zeta there. There's that Scorpius there. That's the one that has a nearly right angle bend in it. So and that's very pretty little thing to see. The next one is Antares. I think this is the first time I've actually talked about a single star. Now, Antares is a red giant. So it's very large. It's around about 500 times the size of our sun. So if you replaced our sun with Antares, it would come out, well, we'd be toast. Mars would be toast. It would come out not quite as far as Jupiter, but a lot of the asteroid belt would be inside the sun there. It's very, very, very big. Red giants get like this because they are nearly out of fuel, which means that they don't have the mass to hold themselves in their own gravity well. So they tend to bloat very badly. The temperature of them is very low. This is about as low as they go. It's about 3,500 Kelvin. So, and that's what gives it the red look. I think it's sort of a red-orange look. And you can, if you use your telescope to see Antares, you can definitely tell it's an orange guy. The next one is Rho Ophiuchi. I also first saw this not very long ago in the telescope. If you look at Rho Ophiuchi, the star itself, it's a triple, by the way. If you look at the star in a package like Stellarium, it looks like Mickey Mouse because there's a big star and there's two stars looking like Mickey Mouse ears. It doesn't look like that in the telescope. They look very much like three separate stars. It's quite aesthetic because the three stars are very symmetrical. So the large star, the bright star is magnitude 5.7, I think. And the two smaller stars, which are about magnitude 7, they are the same brightness and about the same distance away. So that it looks very pretty in the telescope. I'll get back to a little bit more about Rho Ophiuchi in a second. Beta Scorpii. That's at the other end of the Scorpio, of the Scorpius, the Scorpion. It's one of the shoulders. It's a double. Actually, I think it's a multiple. I think it's actually 6 stars. But the ones that you can see are magnitude 2.6 and 4.9, and they are relatively close. They're about 13 seconds distance, which makes them sort of similar to. It's a little bit wider than Alpha Centauri, so it's a nice easy double to catch. The other thing I haven't spoken about before is minor planets. Now, Ceres is sitting in just outside of Scorpius at the moment. Ceres is really cool to see. It doesn't actually look very much different to a star. In fact, there we go. There is Ceres. It's the brightest thing down there. You can tell it was taken by a 3.5 meter dome because it's a Newtonian. So we've got some spikes happening there. It's not the refractor that we've got in the 2 meter dome. The thing about Ceres is it moves. It will move during the night. So what you do is if you can't take a photograph of it, get out a piece of paper and take a little bit of a sketch. You should be able to figure out which one it is because it actually moves. So now if I just yes, here we go. I've got a simulation of what it does over a period of about 6 hours. Now, that one there is Ceres. It's the one which is about 10 o'clock and halfway out to the edge of the field. Now, I'll just roll it forward by a 1 hour steps, and you should see it moving. I don't know if you can see that. It just wanders backwards and forwards. And so these are 1 hour steps. So as you can see, you should be able to see it moving as you watch. What you should do is get up at what, let's say that 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock to see it there, and get up about 3 o'clock, and you should be able to see it there. And it should be noticeably different. This is a simulation of a Saxon 909, which is a 910 millimeter focal length refractor with a 25 millimeter lens. So it's quite a wide angle. If you can get a closer angle, you'll see more. So there you go. So turning to photographic objects in the Scorpius-Sagittarius area, we've got the Omega Nebula, which I don't have a photograph of, sorry. But yeah, it's quite an impressive nebula if you've got a camera. M8 and M20 are available, and they're very close together. These are easy targets to get, especially the lagoon. It's very, very bright. This photograph is taken by Paul Litchin, by the way. You should be able to get both of them in the same image if you've got a wide angle telescope. This is an ED80. Mine is just not quite there. The next thing is this NGC 6727, which is a bunch of nebulosity in Corona Australis. Now, I was going to present this photograph tonight. This is Mark's sea star image, and you can see there's some nice nebulosity there, and there's also a globular cluster as well. But then Mark gave me another image, which is taken from his ED80, I think it was. He told me before, and he's got a bit more color in that. That's taken through his Samsung mobile phone. Very good. But I looked down the people who were speaking tonight, and I found that Andrew had produced one as well. And check that out. I'm sorry, Mark. There's no comparison. Now, obviously, the field of view is much, much wider. So we've got a lot more of the nebulosity in there, or the dark nebula in that. But the colours in that are just spectacular. It's like, yeah, if I could take a photograph like that, I'd be really, really pleased. Congratulations, Andrew. That is a corker. Okay, so that's in Corona Australis there. The Eagle Nebula is the famous Pillars of Creation thing. I do have a photograph of it myself. I was demonstrating some narrow bands, so I did the whole thing. There's RGB at the top, so that's what it looks like to the naked eye, and the other ones are various different palettes of narrow band. I love narrow band. It's quite a sort of a scientific thing. You can see where the gases are and stuff. An Eddie Pang image. No presentation is complete without one. This is the Blue Horsehead, which is not very far from Rho Ophiuchi, actually, and it's one of the most pretty things in the sky. It's just beautiful. And Rho Ophiuchi itself is not just a star, well, not just a triple star. It's the one end of Barnard 44 and 45 streamers, and it sort of winds its way back to the galactic core. This is one of the first images I ever took with of the night sky. It's a 50 millimeter lens. Anybody can take this photograph if you've got a 50 millimeter lens and a tripod. There's nothing else in this, and you can see Barnard 44 and 45 moving back. I don't know if you can see my mouse. There's Antares there. Blue Horsehead is down here, and that's Rho Ophiuchi, and then here are the streamers coming back. So a couple of years ago, a couple of years later, I went back and I took another photograph of it with a different camera, same 50 millimeter lens though, and that's a different shot. And you can see that there's a lot of color and nebulosity going on there. It's very, very worthwhile if you've got a wide angle setup. Okay, so turning to 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, just quickly. Southern Cross is nearly at 5 o'clock. So if you wanted to get up to see Carina, you're in the wrong time of year. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Scorpius is approaching the horizon. When I say approaching the horizon, it takes 3.5 hours to cross the horizon. So it's not exactly one of the ones that just disappears. The Milky Way is also starting to set, which means it's a good time if you want it low for framing. If you've got a tree or something like that you want it around, you'll organise the tree to your southwest, and you should be able to get, or maybe west southwest. You should be able to get a relatively low Milky Way around it if you don't have a very, very wide angle lens. So if you don't have that 14mm lens, you've got a 28 like I do, this is probably a good time to take that Milky Way photograph, but you need something on the ground to frame it. Planets, Pluto, like I said before, is past the meridian. That there's working our way back. There's Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Uranus, and Jupiter are yet to rise. They will be up before the sun, so you can get that nice little line there, and that line shows you where the plane of the ecliptic is. It is a different plane to the Earth's equator, which is the blue line. So yeah, that's the plane that the planet's mostly moving. Pluto is a bit of an outlier. But wait, what about the comet? I know I was talking about a comet last week, so it's not that comet, it's the other comet. So it's C 2023 A3 Tsuchinshan Atlas, which is a bit of a mouthful. We're not sure how it's going to be. It might be a great comet, and I don't even really know what the definition of a great comet is. But people have been talking about seeing it during the day and stuff. Don't believe them, but it's likely to be quite good. The other good thing about it is it's visible from the southern hemisphere when it's at perihelion. So we're in the box seat for this particular comet. It's currently in Virgo, 1.8 astronomical units from the sun, which puts it sort of just outside of Mars, I think a little bit further away. It's coming towards us, and it's obviously moving towards the sun. So that means it's, where's my mouse there? If it's going to be moving off that way. In mid-September, it will be behind the sun, which is not particularly disappointing because it's got to do that. Perihelion is on the 28th of September. Now, it's a morning object at that stage, and it's 0.4 AU from the sun, so it's fairly close. It's about the same distance as Mercury, which means that it's going to get very, very warm, and hopefully it's going to start really, gassing or off-gassing from the tail. So with any luck, we might see something quite impressive. The maximum elongation is a couple of days after that, and this is the best time to see the comet. It's up in the morning, but because it's at maximum elongation, it's the furthest from the sun visually, which means that you'll be able to get up a little bit earlier before the sun starts brightening the sky, and that's the best time to see the comet. So the 2nd of October in the morning, I think about 5 a.m. In mid-October, it goes back in front of the sun, between us and the sun, actually. And after about 20th of October, it's back to the evening, and the Americans can see it again, and it will be moving away from us. It'll still be very good, I'm hoping, on the 20th of October, but it will be moving away from us. Now, it is visible now. This is taken just the other day. There's a bit of a story behind this photograph. It's not very good. I was just framing the comet up because I wasn't quite sure where it was. I had to find it. And this is the last shot I was able to get before it clouded over on me. So this is the one and only shot I've got of it, I'm afraid. So there you go. So the final notes and any random observations. 14th of June, don't forget, Lunar X, it's low in the east. It's 10 minutes to 2 in the afternoon. The winter solstice is on the 21st of June. The 28th of June, the Saturn is a very, very close conjunction with the moon. It's going to be low in the east as Saturn rises. So probably worth getting up, but only if you've got a good view of the eastern horizon, which I don't. Yes, Saturn, I think some parts of the world will see Saturn actually disappear behind the moon. I don't think we will, but it's going to be very, very close, and it's going to be close to the darkened limb of the moon as well. So it might actually be quite good for photographing, but you're going to be photographing through a lot of atmosphere. 1st of July, Saturn is stationary. It's moving into retrograde. I was spoken about retrograde last month. It's going to get brighter as we get closer to it, because that's what retrograde does. And now retrograde ends on the 16th of November, so that means that Saturn's brightest point will probably be sort of August or something like that. 3rd of July, Neptune does pretty much exactly the same. It moves into retrograde. 6th of July, Ceres, the asteroid, is in opposition to the Sun, which means that it's the best time to view it. And at the same time, there's a new moon. So yes, if you can get a shot of Ceres, or preferably a series of shots, that will be excellent. And that is it. Thank you to the Facebook contributors.
A series of shots, Bill. I like that joke.
Oh, actually, I didn't even mean to make that.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you for making my very awesome mobile phone image of Corona Australis look like absolute rubbish. 6727. Look like absolute rubbish compared to Andrew's.
Mark, I take every opportunity to make you look crap.
I know you do. You succeed. We do have a question for you. Where is 24 Ponds Brooks at the moment?
I would have to look that up. It's moving away from us, and it's probably a fair way. It's a fair way away from the sun. It's probably fairly still close to the ecliptic, but I can't actually tell you where it is because I haven't looked it up for a while. So sorry about that.
Take that on board, Bill. Find out where it is. We'll post it in the comments.
Oh, I can do that pretty easily.
There we go. Well, thank you to both of you for tonight.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes, for a wonderful talk. And yeah, it was very, very cool. We've all just been in the background while Bill's been doing his presentation. A few of us have been chatting about where to go for the 2028 eclipse. And I think we found a spot that we might actually see if we can organise an ASV members eclipse weekend up there to see the eclipse in 2028. Because it's only 4 years sounds like a long time, but 4 years can just disappear very quickly, as we know. But yes, we will be back next month. It will be a stream again next month. I'm hopeful that Kate Green, the Space Exploration Section Director, is going to give us a talk on there is a lot in space exploration going on at the moment, but some of the more important things that are happening in the world of space exploration and what might be happening in the future will work behind the scenes, and hopefully that will be our talk for next month. And then following that, we will have I'm hoping also that we'll have Bruno Zelke giving us a talk. And then we are back to Mueller Hall and live streaming from Mueller Hall in September, where we'll have Professor Fred Watson coming to give a talk for us. Yeah, I'm keeping him busy. Got him coming down to Melbourne in September, and then I've got him coming to Sea Lake Astro Fest in November for the Melbourne Cup Long Weekend, which is tickets are on sale for that, for all of the events for that one. For the members, we will be getting ticketing ready for the Galactic Centre Star also as well. So keep an eye out for those in your Crux Extra emails and on the members forums. But once again, thank you everyone for watching tonight. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Andrew. We will.
I've got Ponds Brooks.
Oh, you've got Ponds Brooks. Okay, there we go.
I found it. I found it.
Before we close it out,
go on.
There we go. Where is 24 Ponds Brooks at the moment?
Excellent. Okay, it's very, very close to the southeastern horizon. So it's quite a fair way away from the let's see, in the morning, that is. It's in the eastern horizon, very close to the horizon. It's hard to see. You're gonna have, it's sort of like close to Rigel, so it's actually not very far from where Orion is. So yeah, that's a difficult one.
Okay, difficult one, but still possible.
Yes, yeah. It's just before sunrise.
There we go. Just before sunrise. Difficult one, but still possible. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight, and we will see you next month on live stream again. As I said, we won't be back into Muir Hall until September because of the Royal Botanic Gardens Lightscape. But we will see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.